Hello kings and queens, my name's Joanna. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Art of Life and Love. It's an extension of my creative writing and wellness blog, also named The Art of Life and Love. I'll put a link to it down below. Today I'll be talking to you guys about triggers. So what is a trigger? A trigger is basically something that triggers you or something that sets you off, something that affects you negatively when you experience it. It could be a place, it could be a person, it could be something that happens to you. It could even just be a word that sets you off when you hear it. It's basically anything that affects you negatively, and it is usually a result of trauma, like deep trauma that you've suffered. You've suffered this trauma, you associate this trauma with a certain thing, person, environment, place, or word. And then whenever you revisit that person, place, environment, or word, if you hear it, the association with that trauma then hurts you. It creates a negative cloud around you, it inserts itself into your heart and messes with your emotions. It's basically something that has an association with deep trauma that sets you off and takes you back to that place of deep trauma whenever you experience it. So basically, triggers are the worst. They are the worst. And some people have worse triggers than others. Some people are triggered by things that they see on TV, whether that's gratuitous violence, references to rape. But the point is that it could be anything, and triggers are unique to each individual person because they are associated with those unique individuals' trauma. Me personally, I have several triggers, but my main one that I've discussed with you before in previous videos is my old home. So my old home is a place where I have a lot of associated trauma, negative emotions. It was a place where I didn't feel safe for a period of time. It's a place where narcissists congregate, basically, is what I'll say, and it's a place that I have thankfully escaped from. But every time I go back, every time I have to talk to the people in that house, every time I have to even go near it, and I do have to do that quite a lot because I've left my car up there. Now that I'm in central London, I can't have my car with me anymore. So whenever I need it, I have to go back up to my old house to collect it. Sometimes I can grab the car and go, but more often than not, people will come out to speak to me, or I'll be forced to go inside for any number of reasons. And what I found is that I will go I'll go back to that house, which is not home, and maybe like a week later, I'll have a very severe depressive episode. And it took me a long time to kind of see the link, because sometimes you get triggered and you have reaction straight away. For example, you can have panic attacks, you can have anxiety. There are several things that can happen to you if you're triggered straight away. But for me, my triggers settle. They kind of settle upon me. I've described it before, like I'll walk into that house and it's kind of like soot falls upon me. It kind of clings to my skin, and I bring that home with me. And if I'm already in a place of vulnerability with my depression, or if I'm not looking after myself properly, or if I don't remember to kind of cleanse myself after my interactions at that place, then it's very, very easy for me to just slide straight down into a depressive episode. But it won't happen for about a week. So a week later, that's when the depressive episode will hit me. That's when the low mood, the irritability, the apathy, the sorrow, the feeling of hopelessness and despair, that'll all crash down upon me, and it'll leave me kind of stunned, like, whoa, what's going on? I was looking after myself. I was looking after my mental health. I was making an improvement. Why have I suddenly crashed? And it's because I've come to realize I've been triggered. So what I want to do today is I want to share with you guys how I've started to proactively prepare myself to be triggered, and how I try and lessen the intensity of my triggers. I'm doing this so that you can hopefully apply these to yourself, so that you can look out for your triggers and understand them, know what they are, know how they affect you, and also so that if you have to come into contact with them, it doesn't affect you as intensely as it previously would have, and hopefully it doesn't cause you to slide down into a depressive episode. Before I go into the main 5 ways that you can kind of prepare yourself before being triggered and how you can help yourself after you've been triggered, I'd just like to say that the number one thing you should always remember is that you should try to stay away from what triggers you. That is the ultimate form of defense. Nothing I will say here today will 100% cure you of being triggered or will completely heal you after you've been triggered. It can help. It will definitely help, and I've definitely been implementing it in my own life and I've seen a massive improvement. It's not a 100% fix, which means that the number one thing that you can do is to try and stay away from your triggers. Now, I know that that's not always possible, especially if you're very easily triggered by things you may see on the news. If you're triggered by a whole variety of things that you can't really get away from, then this is definitely going to help you today. But if it is a very specific thing that triggers you, if it's a specific person, if it's a specific place that you go to, then please, please, please try not to go there. Try not to speak to them. Try not to go to that place. Try not to allow yourself to be triggered in the first place. So that's kind of like my first disclaimer. But now I'll talk to you about the ways that you can proactively help yourself after being triggered and before being triggered. So the first thing that you can do if you know that you have to go somewhere or see someone that triggers you is mentally prepare yourself. It's kind of like going to war. You wouldn't walk out onto the battlefield without your sword, without your gun, without your helmet and your body armor. You have to apply your mental body armor. How I do this is I like to meditate. I like to sage myself and cleanse myself of all toxicity and negativity. But there are a variety of different things that you can do. You have to look at what your individual body armor looks like, and you have to make sure that you apply it before you go anywhere near your trigger. Point number 2, and actually this leads on from point number 1 because it's something that you can do to create this body armor for yourself, is to utilize visualization. I'm a very visual person, and that goes for both with my physical eyes and with my imagination. So what I will do, especially if I'm on my way to my previous home, is I will begin to imagine myself covered in a kind of glowing bubble. It'll be like a sheen of plastic that glows a little bit and that I kind of visualize as being wrapped around my whole body, especially my heart center and all the chakra centers. I'll make sure that they're all wrapped up nice and tight and they're protected. And I will just visualize some form of protection over my physical and my spiritual body. And that way, when I walk into my old home and when I have to converse with the people in that house, I visualize myself as wearing this bit of plastic, as wearing this shield, and I visualize all of the toxic energy, all of the toxic things that they're saying to me, because the people in that house will try very hard to get a reaction out of me. And I will just visualize their words falling upon me like rain, like water on wax as it flows off of me. So you can do this in any way that you like. You can visualize anything that you like. You can visualize yourself covered in light. You can visualize an actual wrap, like a plastic wrap, like what I visualize. But you could visualize yourself actually putting on this mental armor. So putting on the helmet, putting on the mask, putting on the bulletproof vest so that their words just shoot straight off of you. But I would recommend utilizing visualization in order to help prepare yourself for when you have to go somewhere that triggers you. So the third thing I want to mention today is for when you're actually in the situation that is triggering you. Especially if that is a specific person, like for example, the people that live in my old home, I've noticed that they will intentionally go out of their way to say things that trigger me. And the number one thing I want you to remember if this happens to you, if you're around someone who is triggering you, if you're around someone who's trying to push your buttons, is to remember that they are expecting a response. Do not give it to them. They are saying these things on purpose. They are not stupid. The people in my old home are not stupid. They are very intelligent people, and they will say things to me that they know are my pressure points. And what I realized is they are waiting for a response, and my responses make them happy. My responses gives them a kick to see me squirm. It gives them a kick if I clap back with an argument or something. It kind of, they're trying to ignite something. They're trying to pour fuel onto me and set me alight. So what I do is I just stand there drenched in their fuel, got my plastic barrier on, and I don't give them a response. More importantly, I don't give them the response that they desire. Instead of acting with aggression, instead of responding with irritation at what they're saying, instead of trying to check what they're saying or trying to explain to them that what they're saying is triggering to me, which would be the ultimate goal for them, to know and understand that they're triggering me. Instead, I do something which is called going grey rock. And I'll explain more about grey rock when I create my video on narcissists and how you should respond to them. But basically, going grey rock means you act as if you are a grey rock. I basically go stum. I do not give them an ounce of recognition. I do not show them an ounce of emotion. I respond to what they're saying to me with bland responses, monotone responses. I do not engage with them in any way. And I found that going grey rock around people that trigger me has done amazing things for my mental health, because I'm now not spending energy trying to argue with these people, trying to change their views, trying to change what they're saying to me and change their opinions. Instead of trying to fight with them and wasting my energy whilst watching them gloat at the fact that I'm triggered, I now just do not respond with any form of emotion. And that is something that I've had to work very hard on. It's not something that will come easy, especially if you're very hot-headed, if you're very volatile, if you're very easily triggered. This is something that you will need to work on, but I'm telling you that it will have such an amazing effect on your mental health. It will have such an amazing effect on your energy levels when you are not spending your energy on things that do not serve you. And basically, if someone is trying to trigger you, then who they are and what they're saying does not serve you and does not warrant a response. Go grey rock. Do not respond. Do not allow them to trigger you. What I've started to do, especially with the people in that house, is to understand that what they are saying to me does not matter. It doesn't matter. And I can see that they're intentionally trying to trigger me, which then makes it a lot easier not to respond, because it's not what they really think, it's not what they really feel. They're doing it to you on purpose. And because of that, it becomes a lot easier to stand back and not allow it to enter you. Alternatively, as my fourth point, instead of going grey rock in those situations, you can kind of dial up the positivity, if that helps. If it's a lot easier for you to be fake than it is for you to go grey rock, then do that. Try it out, see if it works. It's kind of like when I used to work in Costa as a store manager, the amount of customers who would come up to me complaining about the most trivial things. They've put vanilla instead of caramel into my drink. They've charged me 50p for marshmallows when actually it should be free. And they're screaming at me, screaming in my face. I was being screamed at on Christmas Eve because someone believed that I'd overcharged them for marshmallows. I hadn't, but they believed I had, and they were screaming at me on Christmas Eve. And instead of reacting with negativity, instead of reacting with attitude, I was simply like, oh, well, actually, on the company website, it does say that we can charge you for marshmallows. It's kind of on a store-to-store basis, you see. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. And I used to use it all the time. It used to amuse me greatly. Because when someone is yelling at you, when someone is trying to negatively affect you with their words, especially if they are angry, then you being positive in their face irritates them even more. And I'm telling you, it is the exact same thing with people who trigger you. They are doing it on purpose. They are trying to hurt you. They are trying to say things that will make you angry. And if you respond either with grey rock, like I said previously, or with a positive attitude, then it hurts them because they can see that they are not having an effect on you. So that's the other way that you can go. Instead of going grey rock, you can up the positivity, up the positive attitude, smile in their face, thank them for what they're saying, and then get on with your day. So I've talked about what you can do before you go into an environment that triggers you, and also what you can do whilst you are being triggered. But my final point is for after you have left the place where you're triggered, after you've seen the person that triggers you, after you've maybe turned on the TV and seen gratuitous violence which has set you off. What this is basically about aftercare. Again, when you go into battle, you need your body armor. And when you come out of battle, if you are wounded, you do not just walk about the streets dripping blood everywhere. You have to take off the armor, you have to bathe yourself, and you have to attend to your wounds either by going to the hospital or by looking after yourself at home. And it's exactly the same thing for when you are triggered. You need to have an aftercare routine for when you have come into contact with something that triggers you. For me, that is coming home, that is doing my release and letting go ritual where I burn things I write things down on a tiny bit of paper and then I burn it so that I can visually see that it is gone. I will meditate, I will sage and cleanse myself. I will talk about my triggers. So I will vent. So I will call up my friends and I will vent and I'll be like, I've just had to go back to that place again and this is what happened and blah, blah, blah. So that you're not holding it in, so that you're not constantly thinking about it up here or holding it in your heart. You need to release it in any way you can, either with a releasing ritual like what I do or by calling people up to vent. What you shouldn't do is ruminate. Do not allow what has triggered you or the words that have been spoken to trigger you to enter your head and stay there, because they're winning then. If someone is saying things to you that are triggering you and you go home and you keep replaying those words in your head, then they will keep triggering you. And in actual fact, the person who was speaking those words has won. They have got power over you because you cannot stop thinking about what they were saying. Do not ruminate. Take your mind off of what happened. Process what happened. So when I say don't ruminate and try to let go, I don't mean ignore it. I don't mean push it down. What I mean is that you need to process it, either by meditating, either by talking it through with someone, or however that you usually process things like grief and pain. But one thing you should not do is ignore it, because that will inevitably lead you down that slippery slope into a depressive episode, and suddenly out of nowhere, you're in a depressive episode. So to summarize, you need to protect yourself before you go anywhere near your triggers. You need to have methods that you can enact whilst you are being triggered. Either go grey rock, be super bubbly and positive, or visualize something that covers you that nothing else can enter. And then after you've been triggered, you need to have an aftercare routine that ensures that you've processed what you've been through and make sure that it can't hurt you any more than it already has. You basically need to process and heal the grief and the trauma that are associated with that trigger. So these are the things that I do for when I'm triggered, before I go down to my old house, whilst I'm there, and when I come home. And I've seen a massive improvement in the way that I can process that grief. I've seen a massive improvement in the way that I can handle myself in those sorts of environments now. I'm no longer as hot-headed, I'm no longer as ready to fire back. I now just kind of go grey rock, and then I go home and I meditate and I heal myself. So I hope that you can apply these things that I've mentioned today. I hope that they help. I hope that you can work on your triggers, that you can work on healing your grief and your trauma so that you no longer have to be triggered anymore. And lastly, I hope that you guys are okay mentally. I hope that you are having a good mental week. If you're not, please stay strong and know that you are not alone. Please know that you will not be in this place forever. Please know that all pain passes. If you like what you've seen today, then please go ahead and press that like button just to let me know that you want to see more content like this. Press that subscribe button or the notification button to get a notification when I release a video every Tuesday. I hope you guys all have a lovely week and I will see you next time. Bye.